Welcome to the Fermented Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Anna, and on this channel I'm sharing our journey of learning how to turn our home into a homestead. Today I wanted to bring you along and show you a garden walk. We've had a lot of changes in our garden lately, and I haven't really had the time to actually bring you along for it, so I wanted to kind of show you. For anybody who might be new to this channel, we moved here recently. We moved here last year, the end of last year, so this is our first year having an actual garden. All of this stuff is brand new. We have some base knowledge of gardening, but nothing nothing out of the ordinary, nothing extreme, and we've never done gardening on any kind of scale really at all. So this is all just first time stuff for us. And in here we have a Ruth Stout garden, sort of, very loose, but when we first moved in, I laid down a layer of cardboard, I mowed it, laid down a layer of cardboard, and then covered it with some straw. Probably not organic. I have no idea where it was sourced from or anything like that. It's just what I had my hands on, basically. And so I put in like starts here just very recently in the last couple of weeks. And we had several of them that had been eaten by slugs, and so I replanted several of them with the starts that I had. And so then this area over here has been tarped with a silage tarp for I think probably about 3 weeks now. I had run chickens in these chicken tractors here. I ran them through most of it, but certainly not all of it. And I haven't even taken a look at it yet. But it seems to be doing pretty okay. In this area here and this area here, we're going to be running a lot of kind of winter crops. We're going to be running lots of like kales, cabbages maybe. I think I might be too late to start cabbages, but we're going to just run whatever we can figure out how to run there basically. And maybe it'll stand empty for this year and maybe we'll plant something. It's kind of a bit up in the air. Right now it's mid-August. I think it's actually the 15th or the 16th. 15th or 16th of August, something like that. My work schedule is completely insane at the moment, and it's really difficult for me to find any time to be in the garden, and so I might not actually be able to get much of a massive winter or fall garden in. We'll just kind of see how it goes. I'm going to try my best, but I mean, ultimately you got to put your time where it pays your bills for the most part, and that's where it is right now. So part of my having to work so many hours, I haven't had a chance to be out in the garden a whole lot. And my husband didn't realize that I was doing that and that I wasn't out here as much, and I didn't ask him for help. So we got hit massively with blight, like big time. And my husband and I came out here and we were trimming these up and watering them all day earlier today. It's one of the hottest days of the year. So before the sun really came out and it really got hot, we were out here and we just completely cleared out as much of the blight as we possibly could from every bed in here. It's very barren and very sad to look at now. It's super disappointing. We haven't even actually had any harvest whatsoever from this yet. No, I shouldn't say whatsoever. From the tomatoes, we've had like 2 cherry tomatoes. That's it. And so it's kind of, it's a little bit frustrating and it's a little bit disheartening, but you know, just sharing the journey, you know how it goes. So we only lost, I would say I pulled, I want to say like 6 actual plants. The rest of them were just like, this area, not quite as much. I probably should have trimmed a little bit more. My husband was a little bit more aggressive than I am, but you know, whatever. And so we have tomatillos are here. They're starting to grow in their little casing here. They're starting to do pretty good. You know, they're about like this big in there. So, you know, we have quite a few of these little lantern thingies that are growing. And our peas are going. These are starting to take off in our little makeshift container thing. We also have some nigella. Those are going crazy. And I can't remember what these are. Sweet meat squash and butternut watham. So we just got some peas that are probably going to grow up about 2 feet and kind of putter out, and then I planted some squash to go along with it. And so you can kind of see we're starting to get some bean flowers going on here, so that's pretty awesome. And these little side beds here, they're starting to kind of take off. And these ones that I wasn't super sure if they were actually climbing, they are. So that's pretty cool. We have some Prescott Fond Blanc melons, some Russian pickling that got eaten. Or is this it? Yeah, this is it. Okay. So, and then we also have Just, this is all mostly cherry tomatoes, and it's doing pretty darn good. You know, we got a lot going on here. Some of the plants are doing significantly better than the other plants, and some of them just kind of suck. Just being real. So, like this one here, Hartman's Yellow Gooseberry. I mean, this thing is just loaded. It's awesome. I thought these were going to be like little teeny like this, but I mean, there's a bunch that are pretty darn big. And we have some currants that have kind of just let go nuts, and they are going nuts. Same thing over here. Planted the loofah here at least 2 months ago. Is that still loofah? No, the loofah got eaten. It's a Japanese climbing cucumber. This is loofah. It's finally maybe starting to grow. It just didn't want to do a whole lot in the beginning. It's really slow to start. And this is loofah over here too. Okay. So, and then here we have Principe Borscht tomato. This one's going crazy. It's supposed to be one that's really good for sun drying. And so this one's going crazy too. Love it. Got lots of them. And you can see there's some that we still just missed the blight on. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm gonna have to go through and do another trimming. Just lots and lots of tomatoes. You can see, I mean, we just kind of got lots of stuff going on. You'll see once we get a little bit further into it that it's really, we really had to do quite an unfortunate chop job today. It was really a bummer, but you know, it's what it is. And then we have a couple, see this one here. We saved a couple that had like a lot of fruit on it that still had some blight damage. For the most part, we kind of pulled just about everything. We saved the ones that had blight damage like on the actual stem, like this one here. Like we didn't want the entire plant to go, so I mean, I'm sure we're gonna regret that decision, but we'll let you know if we do. If anything, we'll probably just let some of them grow, and then if it starts to look like it's getting too bad or it's jumping from plant to plant, then we'll pull them. And then over here, down here, we have some more pickles. This is a double yield cucumber, and with a bunch more beans. This is a rich sweetness melon. Not really doing much. We went through today also and did a nice deep watering. We have rain collection, and so we have to hand water right now. Hopefully not for too much longer. Hopefully I'll figure out a way to do some automatic watering with that. But for now, it's just hand watering with the rain barrel because it hasn't rained in a really long time. It hasn't rained in like 2 or 3 weeks. That might not be a long time for some people, but for us, it's a long time. And so we're kind of trying to take it easy on the well and making sure that I am watering, hand watering, and it's a lot to water with this. So this one is, you can really see kind of the bareness of it. Like this one, we pulled out like 4 on the other side here, 1 here, and just kind of really stripped it down. And it really revealed how few fruits were actually growing on here. So we've definitely come up with a much better game plan for next year. And that's pretty much all this year was about, was just trying to learn how to garden in our area, kind of learn what grows, what we need to do, and how to best utilize the grow space that we have. And I think one thing that we have definitely decided is to give much more room for the tomatoes, probably like 2 feet for each tomato plant instead of like the 18 inches or so that we have now. And so that's kind of the plan for that. We do still have quite a few tomato plants that are producing, you know, pretty reasonable sized fruit. You know, it's not a complete loss, but it's certainly not the harvest that we had gone into the season hoping that we would get. And these beets are still growing. These beets are the first thing that I planted in this garden. They're still growing, and they're still just really, really slow. They were kind of shaded out by a bunch of radishes and a bunch of the tomatoes and everything that we had growing here, so they just never really took off. And so I think now that we've kind of cleared the area, you can kind of see that they're going to have a little bit more exposure to the sunlight, and hopefully they'll be able to take off and really start to grow now. So yeah, just got a bunch of tomatoes. It's kind of the main event around here. At least it was before today. Now it's kind of just the main disappointment. But you can see we got some good producing ones. This is a, what is it? A quadro tomato. It's like a big old spider. Woo. So we just have a bunch of nice, good big tomatoes. And then we have a few that are just like, why did I even bother saving it? Because there's like literally 0 on it. And you can kind of see we did, for the most part, single stem, just kind of let it climb up the trellis. And we have a lot that are significantly taller than the trellis. And yeah. So you can see we did not get all the blight. Probably gonna regret that. So this one here is doing really awesome. This one's going gangbusters. You got this, both sides of this one is doing amazing. It's all just beans and then some like cucumbers in the middle, and they're just going crazy. And we got some awesome tomatoes here. This one, I don't have a sticker on it, but yeah. Also see just more cherry tomatoes, and they are extremely tall. I mean, I don't know if you can get a gauge of this, but this thing's got to be extending at least 4 feet beyond the trellis up there. I mean, it's pretty dang tall. In here, this was Robert's potato patch that he had grown and did quite well, and so he just pulled the potatoes, so I went through and planted a bunch of squash, some spaghetti squash and some butternut orange, some Lakota, sweet dumpling, candy roaster, and butternut waffle. So, and I did the same thing over there. Take you over there. Same thing over here, but he had only harvested this area here by the time I got to it, and this was still going. So we only have 4 in here. Just some squash that are going. And then, yeah, I mean, you can see this has got some blight and some tomatoes on it. I mean, if I'm being totally real, like if we'd pulled everything that had any kind of blight on it at all, we wouldn't have anything left. I mean, like it really got hold quick. And it's really surprising because we haven't had any rain, and I haven't really watered much really at all. I haven't needed to. I haven't had much leaf curl, but for whatever reason, it got hold really quick, and it just destroyed everything. So I honestly don't think if I pulled everything that had blight, I wouldn't have anything left. Like I would just have to pull it all out. So it was pull the worst of the worst, and even the medium of the worst for the most part. I mean, we were pretty picky with what we pulled out. We pulled out a lot, especially Robert. He was a little bit more gung-ho for pulling that stuff out than I was, but we still got a lot of stuff out. And so, I mean, I want to have some tomatoes, so I didn't pull everything that had blight. So if I do pull everything that has blight, then I wouldn't have anything left, and so it really wouldn't matter if I leave a little bit in just to try and get some kind of a harvest. That was kind of my thinking behind it. We'll see how it goes. But these ones are doing really great. I just kind of threw in some peas, and it's also got some Blue Boy Bachelor Button. Got some flowers going on in here, and these are just starting to kind of take hold and climb up this here trellis. Sort of. I need to train them a little better. Maybe I'll go through and do that after this. But yeah, this area here, Robert just did just the other day. So he pulled out most of the rest of his potatoes. Just got a little more here. So I just need to go ahead and replant that with something. And see, this one's doing great. And we have a beautiful flower. I'm so excited. I want to say it's a Golgardia, but I could totally be wrong. Let's see if I can find it. Yep, Golgardia. It's so pretty. I love that thing. And then we just have a bunch. This is the other side of that box that I was showing you earlier that was going crazy. This one is just insane. There's a cucumber. What kind? Russian pickling cucumber. And just a bunch of beans. Here's some more. We got a flower in there. I don't know if it's going to actually produce fruit, but we'll see. We got more flowers hiding under here. Calendula. Got some already died off calendula in there. And see what I mean? It's just like the blight is just everywhere. It got on everything. It really just spread. And that was one of the reasons that we both kind of came to the decision of making sure that they have more space next year. We have so much room in these gardens right now. There's no point in overplanting it. Because, I mean, I planted like 100 and I think Robert said it was 180 different plants. If I had just planted like 120 plants and given them much more space, we would be having a much larger harvest than we're having now, because the disease likely would not have spread as much as it did. So just throwing that out there for you. So, and then we have some more here. This is a different bed, a different style bed, and this one was planted much later than the other ones. And this one is a much more of a combination of things. It has, so you have a bunch of different types of radishes. These icicle radishes are amazing, by the way. White icicle radishes, they're awesome. And we have some nasturtiums growing, some tomatoes, bunch of peppers, and even some that are starting to actually fruit. I don't know what that kind is. It's a blank label. But lots and lots of peppers going. Lots of fruiting peppers. More nasturtiums. Got a couple sunflowers. It's just going nuts. And then we have a bunch more radishes over here. And even some beets that are going on in here. Let me see if I can find the beet sticker. I don't see it. So there's like, these are a Pusa Gabi, I think. Yeah, Pusa Gabi radish. And then this one was a Cylindra beet. That's not a beet. I don't know. More. And it's just a bunch of radishes and beets that we kind of planted intermixed with all of the peppers. So then in this bed here, we planted the whole thing all the way down for the most part with a bunch of tomatoes, and these ones were planted significantly later than the other ones and planted a little bit differently. Those ones up top were planted very deep, and they have mulch on them. These ones were not planted quite as deep. They were planted significantly later. They were started at the same time, but they were actually put in the ground much later. So they're just weaker plants in general, and they're not as thick and they're not as robust. They also don't have any mulch on top. So a little bit of a different kind of growing pattern, and they're further away from the ones up there, so they weren't quite as affected by the blight. I think also because they just are much thinner. They had much more space. They weren't as cramped. They weren't touching as much. So at any rate, and then so over here we have a bunch of zucchinis and summer squash going on. There's several of them here, as well as a bunch of different flowers. My favorite, flower. I'm so excited. And we got some kales going on here, and some collards and kales. And then also in this bed, along the edge here, all the way down, there's different types of beets planted, and then also on the same thing on the other side, and then all through the middle there's just rows of radishes, and then a little bit further down here, so you can see there's just a bunch of radishes, beets. And then in the middle there's just a bunch of lettuce that hasn't really come to much fruition. But yeah, the beets are doing great. And we have a bunch of jalapenos that a friend of mine gave me. These ones are doing really good. Finally got them in the ground. I thought they were just going to be in the pots. On the other side of this bed here, we have our in-ground section that has all of our squashes. This is all squash, 100% squash. Everything here that is in the ground is squash. All different types and varieties. Down here along the bottom, these are mostly very small squashes, but mostly like pickles. And a couple of them didn't make it. Prescott Fawn Blanc. And they recently decided to call it quits. This was a replant from the original, which is a bummer. This one's doing great though. Melon Rich Sweetness, number 132. So these ones are just doing great. A lot of these were replanted because they had just been decimated by slugs and such. But this one is so funny. It just like is just this giant mat of stuff. It's a Russian pickling cucumber. And we got lots of squash growing, lots of zucchinis, summer squashes, all kinds of beautiful stuff. I actually just harvested our first zucchini today, or yesterday. It was yesterday. You got more hiding in there. And I've also been making sure, to the best of my ability, to assist in the pollinating process, because up until today I had not seen really any bees here at all. So I was just going around and trying to hand pollinate as much as I possibly could. As you can see, because I tied it off so I can harvest the seeds. I didn't tie off every one that I pollinated, but I tied off some of them because I want to be able to harvest seeds that are true to type as best as I possibly can. So I did several of the jumbo pink bananas and some of the yellow squashes, yellow summer squash. What else did I do that to? A couple of the Cinderella ones. I just come out here every morning, and when there's a male and a female, I pollinate them. The way that I do that is just with a Q-tip. I just rub the Q-tip on the inside. Well, it really depends. Sometimes I'll just pluck the male flower if there's an abundance of them, and I'll just swirl it around the inside of the female one. And then sometimes if there's a lot, or if there's only one, then I will swirl it with the Q-tip on the inside, and then rub it on the inside of the female. So my squash kingdom is doing amazing, and it's doing wonderfully. You can see this here. This little itty bitty guy is an Abe Lincoln tomato. This is what happens when you have weak plants and you plant them really late. Some of them just kind of are little. So you can see here, also this is the other side of that bed. Some more Golgardias. Golgardias. Oh, I just love straw flowers. They make me smile every time. Put in some chard here. Costa Romanesco. Just a whole bunch. Pretty exciting stuff. So I think you can definitely see through the garden tour here that gardening definitely has its ups and downs. And especially for me here, especially in the first year, especially when you're trying to learn everything, there's going to be a lot of failures, but I am certainly not going to be giving up. I am going to be just taking all of these lessons that I've learned this year and applying them to next year, and hopefully being able to have a much more abundant harvest and a much less frustrating experience. And I kind of had a feeling that this would be a bit of a frustrating experience, especially because this is the first year and I had to build everything and then plant in them. So a lot of stuff ended up going in the ground late, and a lot of the things ended up being in the little transplant pots too long. So they were a bit weak going into the ground, but I still planted. And hopefully we'll end up getting enough of a harvest to make it at least make it kind of fun. So let me know in the comment section below what has been one of your more frustrating gardening experiences, as well as what you learned from it and what you took from it to improve your gardening season the next year. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed getting a glimpse and getting a view of a big first year garden and kind of a bit of the frustrations and successes that go along with it. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time. Bye.